Thank you, Art. Hi, everyone. My name's Kieran. I am based in the UK. My day job is startup co-founder, non-technical, of course, because I can't code. So I spend my day doing everything except coding and no coding. And then in the evening, after my two young kids are in bed, I work on no code stuff. So everything you see here is like everything I talk about as side projects. None of this is a full-time gig for me. But anyway, I hope this session will be useful for some of you. Just share my slides there. Hopefully you can all see that.
Looks good on my end. Yep.
Cool. So what I'm going to cover today is a bit more about who I am, why I think you should kill ideas quickly, and how you should go about doing that, how you should test them, a bit about the importance of distribution, which I've come to realize is actually the key to any kind of success with indie hacking. And then I'm going to show you a bit about the product Yep that I've built for this testing of ideas. And the aim of everything we're talking about is to decide what idea you're going to focus on. Because if you're anything like me, you're going to have tons of ideas and you can't decide which ones to pursue. And you may well end up wasting a lot of time pursuing the wrong one. So between about 2005 and 2015, I was a entrepreneur. I think I read the 4-Hour Work Week, as I'm sure many of you have. And it got me interested in this whole idea of doing side hustles or starting a business. Before that, I was an accountant, like fully in the corporate world, a slave to the 9 to 5. And then I wasn't able to start anything because I didn't have the technical skills. So in 2015, I actually met a coder who became the technical co-founder for my startup, or our startup, which is still going to this day. So that's my 9 to 5 now, 7 years in, and it does feel a bit like a job, I admit, after 7 years, even though it's still a tech startup, but it was very much a 9 to 5. And then all the time while I was working that, I was still thinking I want to do side projects because I just love the idea of indie hacking and everything like this. So when I discovered no code in 2019, I was like blown away by the power of what you could do. And I immediately took all the ideas that I'd had written down and I started just building them one by one and shipping them. So as a result, over the next like year and a half to 2 years, I shipped at least 18 products. 10 of those were like fully functioning SaaS products. And surprise, surprise, almost all of them shut down, or I shut them down eventually because they didn't really get any traction. I don't regret it because I learned a lot. And I also got to know a lot of people through the whole process. But I did eventually think enough is enough. I need to focus and I need to learn how to choose ideas more wisely. So my aim for 2021 and definitely 2022 is to learn to focus and to do more marketing. So why should you kill your ideas? So this is a quote that really resonated with me from Cortland Allen, who's the founder of Indie Hackers. And he said, everyone has a successful company in them. The goal is not to quit before you get there. So the thing is, most people quit too early because they try one attempt, they try a second attempt, and they try a third attempt and they fail. Because they'd invested so much time or energy or money into these failures, they just have to quit because they think this is too hard. So for me, it's not a case of like knowing what is going to work. It's a case of just optimizing for the long game. I'm going to stick at this no matter what. So in that case, I need to minimize the cost of failure because I don't want it to be tearing holes in my personal life and in my wallet. Because I'm just putting everything into these ideas that are constantly failing. And I've met tons of people that do things that way, and they are a sorry sight to see. So what I think, like a person who can fail 20 times without breaking a sweat will definitely outlast the person who goes all in on every idea. Even if there are some people who just go all in on their first idea and they hit gold, the vast majority of people will not do that. So that's why I think it's important to learn to kill your ideas quickly and efficiently. And this is another good quote from Sean Puri, who hosts the MFM podcast. So he says, hard work is massively overrated. What you work on is far more important than how hard you work. So choosing the wrong ideas just costs you all this time, money, and energy. So you have to choose very carefully. So the purpose of idea validation is to expose the idea of the expose your idea to the practicality of the real world before you build and release a final product or offering. So what you're trying to do is verify demand and find out, is this a real problem? Does my solution actually solve this problem? Will people pay for it? Will they buy it from me specifically? So that's one problem that you might have. You might find a solution that people will definitely pay for, but then because you're an indie maker, they're not going to buy from you because it's something that you're trying to sell to the governments or big enterprise, and they might want to deal with a bigger supplier. And does the maths add up? So, like, is there an actual business in this, or is it just not? Is it never going to work out? So these are like 4 things really that you can do with testing your ideas and validating early. And the whole aim of it is to reduce the risk of failure and increase your chances of success. So a classic example is Google Glass, the really cool glasses that people wore for a while that had like augmented reality. It seemed like a really good idea. They went through the whole process of taking it to market, but they had not validated it properly. And if you can just imagine how much money and time and how many people were wasted on that project for them to shut it down. And Google do that all the time. So they clearly are not validating their ideas properly. So I know definitely for me, like when I started with no code, I didn't want to validate anything at all because I thought, okay, my next idea is going to be the one. My next idea is going to be the one. I just want to build it because I'm having so much fun. And the thing about validation is it really involves talking to, or at least interacting with actual people who might tell you your idea sucks. So that's kind of scary, and it's totally understandable that you may not want to do that. But if you can get your head around the fact that this doesn't need to be really difficult and it's actually quite fun to do, then I think you're setting yourself on a good path. So this is a kind of, I'm going to talk through quickly a kind of structure for how theoretically you should validate your ideas. So this is a kind of process you can follow. So the first one is you need to define your goal. So um, just like with any idea management related activities, you need to define your goals first. So in this stage, you need to decide what you want to learn and what aspects you want to test. So your goal for this could be very simple. It could be, is the problem a real problem, or is it worth solving? Is my product going to solve the problem? Do the core features of the product actually work? Um, is is the business model viable and scalable? And is there enough demand to make the business model work at the price I'm setting? So these are all separate questions that you at some point need to answer. Once you've decided which of those you're going to test, you should develop a hypothesis. So you start from your most critical assumption, which is the one that's most likely to fail. And if it did, it would mean your idea is dead in the water. So, for example, in Airbnb's case, the main assumption they had was that people would be willing to stay at a stranger's house and that homeowners would be willing to rent out their homes to strangers. So that was the most critical assumption that they needed to test before they could even think about anything else to do with their business. So they managed to test it just by renting out rooms in their own apartment to strangers when there was a conference in town. And they realized that people would therefore be willing to pay to rent. So they validated the core assumption very quickly and without spending much money, just by doing it themselves. So when you've decided what you want to validate and you've got your hypothesis that you need to test, then that's where you design your experiment. So you're just trying to find the fastest and cheapest way to test this assumption. And it could be a single test or a series of tests that will reveal to you whether you should proceed with this idea. So it could be interviews, it could be landing pages, it could be a prototype. It depends on exactly the type of business you're doing, what level you need. So it could even just be making a PDF mock-up and sending it out to some people, or it could just be talking to people. But you're looking to ask for feedback, ideas, and responses, and look for common themes within them. So if you find people who will say that they will buy your product, then you've potentially found your target market. But if you find people are what people are actually paying for it, then you've found your price, and you need to find people who will keep buying it. So that's your demand. And then finally, the last stage is to test it. So this is actually getting it out there and testing whether the assumption is valid or invalid. So if your idea has potential and the most critical assumption is correct, then you can start refining it. So this is all, I know this is like quite lengthy, but this is a kind of general model that people use for validation. Personally, I find it a bit overwhelming because it's not really the kind of process that a single indie hacker wants to follow, because I think this is more aimed at teams. But just to give you a much more tangible example of how this kind of thing is done. So this is quite a famous example. So Buffer, the social media scheduling tool, um, they wanted to test whether people would use their social media scheduling tools. So they made a 2-page website asking if people wanted to be able to schedule their tweets. And then when someone signed up, they got a personalized email asking for feedback on the idea. And this enabled them to start conversations, and it validated that people wanted the product. Now, the next step was that they had plenty of people sign up for this, and then they wanted to find out, would people actually pay for it? So they just made a small update to their website, and they added a pricing step. So now when people went through, they would be asked how much they would pay for this. And depending on what they clicked, that gave them data on whether people would actually pay for this at all. And obviously they did find that people would pay for it. I think the majority were between the $5 and $20. So they were able to then say, okay, we've validated demand and that people would pay for this idea, very simply. So one thing that I'm increasingly learning is that you shouldn't just test your idea. You need to test your ability to distribute it. So this is a very personal example to me. So one of the first things I ever built with no code with Bubble was this site called VidPops, which was a fully functional SaaS to do video testimonials. And I built it based on one conversation I'd had with a couple of women who worked in a charity, where I basically forced into their heads, wouldn't it be cool if you could do video testimonials, because I thought I could build it. So I built the full working product, not just a prototype, but the full working product. I got a bunch of friends who have small businesses using it, except I found out after a couple of months that actually no one was using it. So I figured, okay, video testimonials must be just really hard to get. So I'm just going to shut this down because no one actually wants it. And then in December, a year later, this guy, Damon Chen, launched Testimonial.to, which you may have heard of. And then within 16 months, he'd reached 20K MRR. So he's had crazy growth. And it was certainly his initial product was almost identical to VidPops. And he's added loads of features now. But I realized that he just has the ability to get this out there. It's not the idea that really matters. It's whether or not you can get people using it. Can you sell it? And this is a really good quote from another indie maker, Alex West, who said, the hard thing is not finding the idea with demand. The hard thing's not even building it. It's consistently finding new customers. And for that, you need a solid distribution channel. So he also said, if you want an idea with product market fit, all you need to do is make a competitor to Notion, Airtable, Webflow, Salesforce, Slack, any of these. They have product market fit and they're doing really well and they're making a lot of money. But the fact is, if you don't have the distribution, then you're not going to be able to sell it. So my perspective now is that ideas are super cheap. They can be changed really quickly. Even if you've got a product out there, it can be changed very quickly and pivoted. But distribution takes a long time to build up and it's difficult to change. So if you've got a specific distribution channel, say you've got an audience on Twitter or on Reddit, or you've got an email list, it's very difficult to pivot that distribution to something else. So you have to think about that very carefully when you're building a product. Now you can build distribution from scratch. So for anyone out there who has not got a big audience to get started, a few people I've spoken to over the last few years have completely, with no audience, have built distribution. So this guy, Kevin Wagstaff, built this home inspection software. He did it after speaking to his friend's dad, who was a home inspector, and he just did it by hanging out on forums and meeting up with home inspectors and just getting to know them over a period of a couple of years. And his products grew super fast because of that. Another guy, Dominic Sobe, has built this product help kit. And he's just done it by posting on Reddit and Twitter and indie hackers and leveraging the fact that the Notion community is really, really active and growing fast. And then this other guy, Cheyenne, is building this event tracking software, which I use. It's really good. Check it out, Logsnag. He only had 70 followers on Twitter when he started, and he just makes sure he posts everything on Reddit and Twitter. He posts really nice screenshots of the product, and he's now got several thousand followers. And I think he had 950 people on the wait list when he launched, and that's with hardly any audience to start with. So TLDR, start marketing before you start building. This is a quote from Rob Walling, who's like an author, podcaster, investor. So he said, like, marketing helps you to validate whether there's a need for your product. So every business he has launched began with a landing page, and that includes SaaS apps, a book, a conference, a startup accelerator. By having this landing page, it forced him to test his distribution channels. Can I get people to look at this landing page even before I've just thought about whether people are going to sign up? Can I actually get people looking at this landing page, and are they the right people? So when people start signing up, you know that yes, you can get people to look at it, and they are the right people who are interested in this idea. And then that led to discussions with potential customers, which then helped him to shape his product. And then finding out, like, would they pay for it? Does it solve the problem that he thought it would solve? So you need to start talking about your idea way before anything is done. And ideally, you'll get people to commit to pay for it before you've even built anything. Although I think with no code, it's okay to build a prototype now because you can do it so quickly. You don't necessarily need to have people put money down first, but certainly if you're building it with normal code and it's going to take a long time and a lot of investment, then you should have people lined up to pay for it. And then obviously when you have tested your idea and you've got people who have signed up, then you get a confidence boost, which is going to just carry you through, because it can be a long and slightly depressing road trying to build these businesses. And so that brings me to Yep.so, which is this tool I built using no code, using Bubble. And the idea is essentially a very, very simple landing page builder, which helps you to craft your pitch really well, and enables you to very quickly get your idea out there. So for someone like me, where I'm constantly making excuses, not telling anyone about the idea, and I'd rather just go and sit in my room and build it without telling anyone, this kind of forces me to actually try and articulate the idea to myself and to others, and then also see if I can get people signing up. And it makes me a lot less emotionally attached to each idea, because I can quickly, within a day or two, I can make 5 or 6 different pages for different ideas. I can get them all out there, and I can work out quickly which ones I should be pursuing and which ones I should leave. So I am now going to show you, or hopefully do a live demo of the product, which, as we know, will usually go wrong.
The first part of that was awesome, Kieran. And for everyone here, if you have any questions, just throw them in the chat. We'll get them answered for sure. Especially as he's doing a demo. If you have any questions about the product, or just about anything he said, just throw them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get them answered quickly. Cool.
So this is the Yep website. Tagline is idea to signups in 15 minutes. Now I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but it is actually true. Like, once you've used it a couple of times, and it certainly, if you know what you want to say on the landing page, you can have it done in 5 minutes and you can have it out there. So just to show you how easy it is to make a page. So there was an idea I'm working on at the moment, which is actually micro courses. So create a page. So this is like the page template, and it's got the headline, the subtitle, call to action button, social proof. So everything you see here, you just type straight onto the page. So this idea is about like a series of video. So I can't talk and type at the same time. So the idea is like a way to deliver courses, but in tiny chunks. So you get an email every day with the next 5-minute video for the course. So it's for busy people, potentially with kids, who still want to take courses. And then as you scroll down, you can see like you should be putting your features or your objections. You can choose an image. So and just add it to the page like that. And then it's got a bit for like more social proof. You can add a testimonial wall if you already have testimonials. You can add more features. You can put frequently asked questions. And you can also type a founder letter. So this structure is all based on Harry Dry's best landing page, or best guide to a landing pages, which is really, really good, worth reading. And it's actually linked when you first create a page, but it's super fast. Dummy text. And then once you filled in those 3 things, you can actually publish. Nothing else will show up, and it's literally a case of just doing that. So the page is live. Took 2 minutes from start to finish. You've got a link here you can share, or you can create separate links for places you're sharing it, so you can test other people who are interested in this, hanging out on Twitter or Facebook or Reddit, and post it in all different places, and you can track these stats from that. So it's already ready. Anyone who signs up on this page now this email will go to, you'll get an email notification. You can also set it so they get an automated email from you that says like, why did you sign up? So you can do the conversation starting that Rob Walling was talking about, which is like super important. So just to show you, this is a page I made like quite a few months ago. I had this idea of a newsletter about marketing for people like me who didn't like marketing. So I was going to try and make it actionable and accessible for people who didn't want to hear about, do SEO. It's going to take you 2 years to see any results. So this page took me, I don't know, like 10 minutes to launch. And then once you've launched it, you get a stats dashboard, which you can check back on, and you can see how many people have viewed it, how many are converted, what your conversion rate is. It gives you like some targets here to try and hit. It's been a while since I've promoted this at all, so I haven't had many recently. But then the idea is that, so this is my ideas board. I can look at all the different pages that I've created, and I can see which ones had the most views, which ones got the highest conversion rate. And based on that, I can decide what I'm going to work on. So this is where I put things if they're just an idea, if they're actually active, or I'm building them. And once I've actually built the thing, I can just redirect the page, so that I'll redirect the button so they go to the actual product itself. And then this is like, this is another example of one that I just created super fast, added in all the images and stuff. So that's pretty much the whole thing. Well, I'll show you. There's obviously I've added a ton of features because that's what no coders do. So you can have like gradient colors, you can change the layout, you can change where the form is going. So if you've got a Gumroad page for this product, you can have it automatically have a Gumroad pop up so people can buy. You can connect to custom domain. So if you got a pro account, which you guys will have if you go through the no code devs link, then you can put it on a custom domain. You can send your signups to Airtable. You can also add a survey after people have signed up. So after they drop their email, normally it just gives them a pop-up saying, please share about this page, and loads of people actually do that, which is super helpful because I see them all the time. Like people are just sharing, I just signed up to this page, and they share the link on Twitter. But also you can have a survey where you can say like, how much would you pay for this? Is there anything else you want to tell me about this idea? And then this is where you can set the custom email that goes to people after they've signed up, which is actually really useful because you get loads of feedback from people, and you can also just reply to them and start a conversation. This is coming soon. Donations, people will be able to donate money to you as a maker, or a bit like Kickstarter. But I want to make it clear that it's like a donation rather than a pre-purchase. And then this is also coming soon, which you'll be able to mark a project for sale. So if it's an idea that's got really good conversion, you'll just be able to say, and you're not going to follow through with it. You can just say, I want to mark this for sale, and then other people will be able to come in and potentially buy a pre-validated idea with a wait list. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions, if you want me to show you anything. I'm happy to do that.
Thanks for going through that. I can speak for myself that using this tool when I first started to connect with Kieran about doing this event, and really just like getting into using Yep.so, like regardless of how it was built, which I always focus, being a no code person, I always am very curious, how it was built, what tool you used to build it. But all that aside, this is just a really awesome product. It's really nice. It's beautiful. It works well. It's fast. It solves a problem. So it's a really, really nice product. And the fact that it was built with no code just makes it even that much cooler. But I encourage, everybody to check it out for sure if you haven't already. It's Yep.so. So, honestly gorgeous. Jordan says gorgeous, honestly. My feelings exactly. So there is a question here from Joe. Any book, YouTube video, or resource about validating ideas that can be a good companion to play and work with Yep.so?
I think, well, I would just watch Rob Walling videos on YouTube. He's really good. There's also the most famous book, I think, about talking to your customers is The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick. It's quite a short book, but he essentially says, don't do the talking, you do the listening, and don't go don't go in with any preconceived ideas about, I'm going to pitch you my idea. Just go in trying to talk about the problem that people have, or trying to get them to talk about it. And the more that they talk and you listen, the better, because I think as makers, there's always a risk that we will enforce our views on people, and they'll just agree with you until it actually comes to you saying, okay, pay me for it, and then they'll just say no.
Awesome. Thanks. Here's another question. There's a couple questions here. What do you think is the most important thing to focus on when building your landing page?
I think the most important thing is definitely like the headline and the subtitle. So this bit and this bit, because, or certainly everything that's like above the fold. So the first part that people see, because they're going to make a judgment right then and there whether they want to keep reading. So it needs to be super clear who the page is for. So you might have a product and you're thinking, okay, this is a product that everyone's going to love, but if people don't feel it's speaking to them specifically, then they are not likely to continue reading. So it says for people who don't like marketing. So that's going to resonate really strongly with a lot of people who read it. And then once they've seen that, then you need to be very clear about what it actually is. You don't want them scrolling down saying, okay, but what actually is it? They know this is for me, and then they see, okay, a concise newsletter. So am I interested in a newsletter for people who don't like marketing? Yes. And then obviously the social proof, if you can get a familiar face, that's great. If you don't have any social proof about your idea, you can just use a quote from a famous person, which kind of supports your thesis or what you're trying to sell. And that's, relatively effective. So I think, yeah, those things are the most important. And then just test it on loads of people, test it, make sure they can understand it. I've seen quite a lot of Yep pages where people have just written a lot, and it takes me ages to work out what it actually is, because you can tell they're too deep into the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how Yep gives you that was a feature I wasn't even aware of, that you could sort of see all your ideas and then it gives you the conversion rates and all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. It's sort of like your own little mini private product hunt or something. Because you could just like crank all these ideas out there and then see what performs well and then just go with whatever has the best conversion. It's awesome. Actually, I'm inspired. Couple other questions here. Which is best, design first and create nice eye candy, or reallocate time to creating a rough prototype?
What do you mean by eye candy? You mean design first, as in like, oh, so okay, so show people what they're going to see or create a rough prototype? Well, yeah, that's a very difficult question. I think it really depends on who you're targeting, because a lot of people are very sensitive to design. So if you were, for example, building stuff for maybe, no coders or developers or kind of people on Twitter, I think a lot of those people are very sensitive to bad design, and that you might put them off very quickly, even if you have a fully functional product. I think people who are less used to looking at websites and apps, using apps and things like that. So maybe like people of my parents' generation are much less sensitive to design, and they would happily use something that looked terrible if it was functional. Plus, people who work in like big corporations who use stuff like Salesforce, um, it all looks awful. So I think they don't care what it looks like if it works well. So it really depends on who you're targeting.
Yeah, that's very true. A feature suggestion for additional languages.
Um, yeah, that well, not yeah, I could do that. I mean, I've been thinking about making a feature where you can have two versions of a page or multiple versions, and it will randomly show a version to people, so you can like A/B test different like headlines and things like that. So that should technically be the same as doing different languages, except I'd need to get the language from the browser or something. But yeah, I think right now you could just make both pages in different languages. Uh, but I guess there's some kind of Google Translate integration you could use. Yeah, I'll have a think about that, but it does sound quite tricky to do.
Awesome. There's a question I missed from earlier, sort of a different topic, and I don't know if you have much experience, but the question is from Zed. What do you think about Webflow?
Um, well, I don't like it. Don't tell anyone. I have tried to use it a few times, and I've used like Photoshop and everything before, so I know what complex UIs look like, and I know about CSS and margins and padding and all that stuff, but I just find it really complicated, and there were some basic things. So that I haven't used it for like 2 years now, but there were some basic things that it couldn't do, which I found really off-putting, especially when compared to Bubble. Like, oh, how do I get people to like submit some information and then just get it into the CMS? Oh, like you have to go via Zapier or something like that. And I was just, little things like that put me off. I think now they have introduced a lot of features that enable you to do that stuff, but still, I found it really difficult and complicated to use. But please don't quote me on that. That's between us on this call and anyone who
Uh,
watches the video after. Maybe bleep it out.
right, right. Yeah. We can edit it out for sure. Probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you recommend, another question from Jordan? Do you recommend learning Bubble or hiring out the design to focus on the marketing? Feel like I could never develop something as beautiful as Yep.so.
Um, well, it depends on your personality and what you're good at. I would say definitely try learning Bubble, because it might not be as hard as you think. Um, and there's loads of really good courses out there. And I suck at design, uh, and my design has got better over time. And I've just borrowed loads of ideas from people. So I definitely say try learning it, because I think it's just such a good skill to have, and potentially a new career if you need one. But if you are already really good at marketing, then yeah, maybe you want to spend your time doing that. So I'd say try Bubble, and if you find it too difficult, give it 10 or 20 hours. If you still find it too difficult and you don't want to continue, then focus on marketing, but definitely try it first. Because I think if you can do marketing and you can build, then you're like a superhuman, really.
Yeah, and it's funny. You're not to go back. I'll have to bleep out lots of things. Not to go back to Webflow, but it's just it really is personal preference too, because I think there's a lot of people out there that would have the opposite reaction that you had, that they would think that Webflow was really easy and the bubble was really hard,
Yeah.
including myself probably. So it really depends, I think, how your sort of brain is wired. And all these tools are different and resonate with different people for different reasons based on their life experiences. So but I think your point is a good one. Like give anything, whether it's Bubble or Webflow or a zillion of the other no code tools, if you start to spend time in it, things begin to click, and you start to like make these connections and get a good night's sleep, and those connections will get stronger, and you'll start to figure it out. So I think that's really good advice. A couple more questions here, and we'll be pretty close on time. Did you spend a lot of time to learn Google Ads? Are you using Google Ads? What do you recommend to get traffic onto your page?
Yeah, again, so that really depends on the kind of people who you're targeting. So before you, as I said in the presentation, like I really think it's important to think about like audience first, and who are you going to try and distribute this to. So quite a few people have made pages, and then they said to me, okay, how can I get traffic to the page? And I kind of feel like if you have no idea how you're going to get traffic to the page, then perhaps you should be looking at another idea first, where you do have some idea of how to get traffic to the page. Because yes, it is possible that you'll stumble across a great idea, and then you'll be able to do Google ads, and you'll target the right keyword, and then you'll get traffic to the page, and then you'll know that your main distribution channel for this product is going to be Google ads from now on. But as like an indie hacker, I think it's just worthwhile just thinking more about what audiences do I already have access to? Like, what groups am I in? Is there something that people at my work need? Is there something that people who are in the same clubs as me need that I could build? And I know that I can get it to them because I can know them personally. I know that I can get some people to test it out, or maybe I'm like, big in some Reddit community, and I can make something for them. So for me, like now, I really try, anytime I have an idea where I can't specifically think of someone who would be a tester for this and potentially pay for it, I kind of write it off already. So um, I think it's a case of thinking like, where can I get people, what people can I get to look at stuff, and then building something that they're going to like, rather than building something and then saying, okay, how do I get people to look at this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. That's really, really good. Really good
And
breakdown of
I
that.
hate Google ads. I've done a bit of it for my day job, and I cannot understand their interface. And in fact, I met someone the other day who works on Google ads as a product, and I just said to him, it really sucks, doesn't it? And he agreed, and he works for them.
Well, yeah, Google doesn't build anything anymore. They, that I've heard that, multiple times, but, yeah. So another question: what do you think of Webflow? Is it efficient to create a no-code idea? And like, hey, look, I mean, it really just depends on the idea. Like, sure, there's lots of people building, businesses on Webflow. Absolutely. But if you're trying to build Yep.so on Webflow, you're gonna have, a hell of a time, because you're gonna be you're going to be connecting to, you're just not going to be able to do it. It's just not that type of tool. So it really depends on what you're trying to build. I think that like if you're trying to build like maybe some sort of very simple membership site, you could integrate with, other tools to make that work. I think Webflow is actually introducing member plans now. I think it's in beta or something, or memberships now. It's in beta, but really, it really boils down to what you're trying to build. So it's a great tool for a lot of people. But also, if you're trying to build something more complex with users and data and something like Yep.so, then you're probably better off using a more full stack no code tool like Bubble. So really just depends.
Yeah, I mean Ben Tossell built MakerPad on Webflow, so
Yep.
and he sold that for a lot of money to Zapier. So it really depends what you're building, and if you're building something like that, I think a membership site. Certainly now they've got memberships. I really think that Webflow might be better than Bubble for that now. But if you're building something more complicated, then you might want to look at Bubble.
Yeah, and hey, check out Editor X, by the way. This whole event today is being run on Editor X, and they have memberships and member-specific pages and of like native forums and all kinds of really cool stuff. So Editor X is like in my mind, if you're not like just like a super obsessed designer and obsessed with Webflow, Editor X is an excellent choice that actually gives you a lot more back-end functionality. So check out Editor X too. Cool. Well, that pretty much brings us to time. So unless there's any last minute questions, Kieran, why don't you just sort of for anyone who is not already connected with you, just sort of share how to get in touch with you. What's the best way? I think it's No Code Life on Twitter, but I'll let you confirm what your preferred method is.
I just dropped it in the chat. It's at No Code Life. So yeah, always happy to connect. So if you have any more questions, feel free to send me a DM. I think there was one question. What was your 2015 startup, and would you build it in Bubble if you had to do it over? So I wouldn't be able to build it in Bubble because it's a communications app. So we've got native Android and iOS apps, and they connect in via Twilio to like telephones. And so I couldn't build it in Bubble because you can't really do native apps. And now we've also expanded into video calls as well. And we've got like a super custom built video call system, which you can do video call system in Bubble using daily.co, which is like an API, or other ones. But there's no way we would have been able to build what we've got with no code. So there is still a big place for code in this world. And working with coders every day, I can see like it's incredible to have unlimited capability, but there's also a load of drawbacks to it. Like things are still very flaky. You've got tons of different things all tied together, and it's extremely complex to maintain and manage. So yeah, I'm glad I met my technical co-founder then. But when I'm building stuff with no code, I specifically choose simpler ideas if I can. And a lot of my early ideas, like BidPops, involve things like video, which actually is really expensive to store. So I'm trying to just think of simpler ideas if I can, and I think that's definitely a good way to go if you're building with no code.
Absolutely. For sure, you have to think about all that stuff, no matter what you're building. But if you need to validate your ideas, Yep.so is a great way to do it. Whether you're going to build it with code or no code, it's definitely a great tool to test out your ideas and put them out there in the world. Don't leave them in your head. That's the worst place for them. So this was awesome. I learned a ton. This is sort of not an official announcement of this by any means, but one thing that we've done that's really cool with Kieran is anyone who's part of the No Code Devs community. So anyone who's basically a member of our website is on our email list. Yada yada yada. We're actually gonna give you a Yep.so account. Kieran, you might be able to share the details more, but you'll basically be able to use the Yep.so product through No Code Dev. So we've partnered with Kieran in this way. We have not announced this yet, but at some point in the next couple weeks, with the sharing of this video and some other marketing materials, we will give you access to Yep.so through No Code Dev, so you can build your pages on Yep.so. Am I missing anything there?
Yeah, so you're gonna get a pro account through
Yes.
No Code Dev. So you'll be able to like use all the pro features like surveys and custom domains and things like that. And you'll have up to 50 pages that you can ship. And there will also be a no code devs like community leaderboard, so you'll be able to see whose pages are getting the most traction, and also comment on each other's pages, so get feedback from other members of the community, which will be private within the community rather than available to the public. So yeah, hopefully it will be quite useful.
Yeah, and actually, I think I can actually share that link right now in this chat for anyone who's just like super, super excited to get going. I think I could share a link right now, but we will sort of announce this officially at some point too. So I will try this, Kieran. I don't know if I'm going to do this right, but I'll go ahead and share this link. So if you're super curious, and if you have any trouble, just email myself or DM us on Twitter or Kieran, and it'll be happy to help. So that's awesome. We tried to do this event a couple weeks ago, and we had some tech problems. So really been sort of like excited to get here and announce this and share Yep.so and make it available to the no code devs community. So we're finally getting there. And anyone that was here today, thanks so much. This was awesome. All right, we'll call it quits, and I'll make sure to edit out that that Webflow comment. You don't want them coming after you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just bleep out the word Webflow so they don't know what platform I'm talking about.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate everyone and being here and all the questions. This was really cool.
Thanks, everyone.